I got to be quiet because my son is currently sleeping in the other room, but I got to get this out. So sorry, audio listeners, this part's just not for you. Malik Monk is staying in Sacramento. 4 years, $78 million. The man didn't even wait for free agency to officially begin to decide to stay here. He is a king, baby. Let's light the damn beam tonight. And you are listening to Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time. Time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all off season long. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And man, nights like this are why I don't just love being a Sacramento Kings fan. I love having this podcast, right? I love having this outlet, this ability to express this excitement to the world. And I know you Kings fans tuning in, you're celebrating with me. Get the celebrations going in the comment section on YouTube. Hit me up on Twitter at MattGeorgeSac. Hit me up in the email, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Talk to me, man. How are you feeling? Malik Monk is staying with the Sacramento Kings. That dark cloud of concern, of fear of losing the guy that should have been the sixth man of the year, but arguably the most important player on the Kings roster, at least last season. He's staying. He's not leaving. The Kings have him for the next 4 years under contract. We are celebrating tonight. It is such an awesome, awesome evening, and I'm so happy to be able to share it with all of you. Let's get into the details of this contract. We'll talk about what this means for the Kings, what's next for the Kings. We got to talk about Malik too and celebrate Malik and his journey. There's so much to get into this podcast, but make no mistake about it. This is a celebration tonight for Malik staying in Sacramento. Like I said, 4 years, $78 million. And Bobby Marks put out the breakdown that I was able to retweet here. So next year, it's $17.4 million. The following season, it's $18.8 million, then $20.2 million. And the final year is a $21.6 million player option. If you don't know what that means, essentially that final year of the contract, Malik can choose to either exercise and it just becomes the fourth year and he gets that money that's attached to it, or maybe he thinks he can get more money, or he's unhappy with the circumstances, or whatever the situation might be. The power of that last year is in the player's control. So they get to choose if it's only a 3-year deal or if it is indeed a 4-year deal. And if the Kings decide to trade Malik at any point over the course of that contract, the player option remains. So no matter where he goes, when he sees out the term of this contract, that fourth year is his to decide. And again, that fourth year is worth what? 21.6. So basically $22 million. One thing I want to express, and I don't mean to not make this about Malik and make this about Sacramento and the Kings, but I'm going to do it anyway. This is a monumental occasion for Sacramento, right? And I've already seen people on social media, people rolling their eyes, like, look, Sacramento celebrating like they just won a championship just to get a free agent to re-sign. You're damn right we did. And you're damn right we are re-signing, because this is a big deal here, right? We don't have the luxury of being Los Angeles or Miami or any of these massive markets. Convincing any player of the caliber of Malik Monk to sign in Sacramento is a big deal. Convincing Malik Monk to take less money than he could have gotten elsewhere to stay here in Sacramento is a monumental occasion. And to me, it is a sign of real change that is happening and has happened with this organization. The Kings in the past have been able to get players that they traded for to re-sign. To be fair, Malik signed an initial contract for 2 years, then signed this extension. Harrison Barnes is a big example. The Kings traded for Harrison Barnes when he was with the Dallas Mavericks. They convinced him to sign his first extension, and then he just signed his second extension last offseason. So there's that example. So it's not like it's unheard of for the Kings to be able to hold on and maintain free agents of the starting caliber or the caliber of Malik Monk. But to get a player of Malik's circumstances and his situation, a highly coveted free agent, make no mistake about it, everybody. Malik Monk had suitors. And there are teams, and I know this for a fact, there are teams in the NBA kicking themselves that they don't have the cap space to be able to make a legitimate player, to have been able to make a legitimate play for Malik. It worked in the favor of the Sacramento Kings that not every team was in a good position to try and pry him away or financially pay him to leave Sacramento and pay him more than what the Kings could give him with his early bird rights. But that's not the Kings' problem, right? I know other teams wanted Malik. And the fact that Malik decided to sign with the Kings before free agency even began, which is a new thing this year. The NBA implemented this new thing that now once the NBA Finals ends, you can negotiate with your free agents. It's mainly, I think, put in place to handle like massive contract extensions and max contracts and things like that. I'll be honest with you. I did not expect Malik Monk to make a decision before free agency begins, because technically, once free agency begins, that's where he can field other offers from an Orlando or a San Antonio or any of the other teams, Detroit, that had more money and potentially was going to try to pry him away from the Kings. Now, I'm not naive, right? I know conversations are already happening. This is the NBA, right? Tampering happens all the time. Malik and his team, his agent, probably had a pretty good idea of the interest level outside of Sacramento and the dollar figure outside of Sacramento. So we don't know, and we might never know, if any teams were willing to pay more than what the Sacramento Kings were willing to pay. I think it's a safe assumption that a team would have, and that there was money out there to pursue Malik. Regardless, Malik choosing to stay in Sacramento and get this deal done, not just before free agency opens, but before draft night. It's such a big deal. It is a massive win for the Sacramento Kings, and it is classy by Malik and classy by his team. Because look, the deal that the Kings offered, this deal, like it was set in stone. The Kings could only offer Malik a certain amount of money. So there wasn't, I imagine there wasn't a lot of negotiation going on. The Kings were willing to pay what they could pay to get him back. So Malik knew this deal was always going to be there. Malik could have easily just waited until free agency started after the draft and decided immediately when free agency began, you know what, I'm going to stay in Sacramento. But by doing this early, he gets rid of that dark cloud. He gets rid of that doubt. He gets rid of that concern and gives the Sacramento Kings a clear mind going into the draft and going into free agency after the draft and any potential trades that they want to make on draft night next week. A player of Malik's caliber doing Sacramento a favor and taking less money to stay here than he potentially could have gotten to go elsewhere. That cannot be taken for granted here in Sacramento, and it is 100% worth celebrating. So the Kings keep their sixth man. I don't know if he's going to be a sixth man going forward. In fact, later on in the podcast, we'll talk about, now we can revisit the conversation of, now we know Malik's staying. Is he going to start or not? I know he wants to. We all know that he wants to. So we'll have that conversation a little bit later on in the podcast. We'll get to that. But the Kings, they keep their sixth man. They keep one of their top playmakers, one of their go-to shot creators and bucket getters, and they keep a huge, maybe the most important locker room team chemistry presence that they have. Malik is staying here. And now it's time to celebrate him. We know how great this is for the city. We know how great this is for the Kings organization. But Malik Monk deserves all the praise in the world because his NBA journey has been nothing short of a struggle. He was nearly out of the league, drafted into Charlotte, had his issues with Charlotte, had some suspensions, things like that he went through, stuff that we don't necessarily get into. A rocky start. The Charlotte Hornets, it never really worked out there. It wasn't working for him. I think they prioritized him pretty much as just a shooter coming out of the draft. And as we know, Malik is more than that. It was not working early on in this career. This man was nearly out of the league. Then he goes to Los Angeles on minimum money, right? He bets on himself. And this is probably, if we're being honest, like that's probably Malik's last chance. Like we're talking about signing a minimum deal to go and be a player off of the bench. And I know Malik got some opportunity as a starter, but mainly like a rotational role player with the Lakers. If that doesn't work out, I don't know if he gets a job or gets another contract offer after that. Goes to LA, plays well in LA, right? Had some really, really good moments. Starts to show people like, hey, Malik is more than what he showed in Charlotte. That leads to the contract that the Sacramento Kings gave him. It helps, of course, that De'Aaron Fox is here in Sacramento as to why the Kings would want to go out and get Malik Monk. But I think it's disrespectful to Malik, and more importantly, it's shortchanging Malik for earning that contract. He did not just get that because he's De'Aaron's friend. That being said, it was still a 2-year, relatively low money deal. It wasn't anything worth like blowing your mind over. And Malik outplayed that contract immediately. Like immediately. As soon as Malik started playing with the Sacramento Kings, we could see that he was a steal for the value that the Kings got him for. And for 2 years, he was one of the best, if not the best, six-man. He became a top 3, top 4 player, a contributor to the Sacramento Kings in the playoffs. He blossomed, right? The Kings, Mike Brown put him in a position to blossom, but he bet on himself. He stayed ready, stayed true to himself and who he is as a player. And now here he is collecting a $78 million bag. That's king, you know what? I'm going to just bleep it. That's king. That is king. Malik Monk bet on himself, went through all the adversity in the world, kept a great attitude, kept his smile, stayed true to who he was as a player, and it blossomed into the bag that he deserves. And he could have gotten more, but decided that staying in Sacramento and staying with what the Sacramento Kings are doing here was potentially more important than a few extra $1 million elsewhere. What a unbelievable journey, a great story for Malik, and what an unbelievable get and accomplishment for the Kings and for this organization. De'Aaron Fox absolutely had a lot to do with it. Mike Brown 100% had a lot to do with it. But the culture here in Sacramento, even though they missed the playoffs last year, the culture here in Sacramento has finally changed for the better. I will go as far as to say I don't think these set of circumstances 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago, I don't think this happens. For someone who is as high profile as Malik, for someone who was capable of making more money, choosing to stay in Sac for less. Yeah, I don't think that happens 3-4 years ago with where this Kings organization was. So what does this mean for the Kings? We'll talk about that. Plus, reignite the debate. Malik Monk a starter, Malik Monk continuing as the sixth man. We'll discuss it all right here on Locked On Kings. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Gametime, an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying your tickets, whether it's for the MLB, any sporting event. If you're buying tickets to watch Malik Monk play in Sacramento next season, do it on Gametime. Plus, you can get your tickets for concerts, your tickets for theatrical productions, comedy shows, whatever it may be. They have priority last-minute deals where you can save up to 60% buying last minute for whatever you're going to. They have incredible flash deals that are only in-app on select dates for select events. They have their all-in pricing, which it shows you the total upfront, no hidden fees, none of that nonsense. The price that you see when you click on the seat that you want to buy is the price that you're going to pay. You're not paying an extra $10 here and $5 here and $12 here on top of all of that. Plus, they have the Gametime ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. They're not trying to screw you over. Life happens. Things come up. Gametime will work with you, not against you in those circumstances. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So what does this mean now for the Sacramento Kings? Well, like we talked about already, first and foremost, the biggest question of the offseason is answered. And it is answered early, right? You know that the most important free agent that you were going to be able to get decided to stay. You got it worked out. Your core four is secured. Fox, Sabonis, Murray, and Monk. You got them. And you still have your assets to be able to go out and add to it, which is what the Kings need to do. Make no mistake about it, the work is not done. This is not a, hey, the Kings signed Malik, go draft someone at 13, call it an offseason, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely not. The Kings still have a lot of work to do. But now they're going into that work knowing that the biggest accomplishment that they could get this offseason is done. It's done. They can go into those decisions with freedom, with confidence, and with a knowledge that they don't have to worry about spending money or assets or whatever it may be, picks or players or whatever, on finding a replacement. Now they're looking for just an addition. The foundation is not cracked. You're not losing a pillar. You still got it. Now you can focus on getting the right materials to build on top of it. That approach alone is game-changing for the Kings front office this offseason. But what's next? It's the draft, right? Wednesday, Thursday, day 1 and day 2 of the NBA draft. The Kings, of course, have the 13th overall pick in the draft. Now, my approach and my belief on what the Kings should do in the draft has not changed, right? Trade 13. But now you don't have to trade 13 for a Malik Monk replacement. You don't have to trade 13 for a backup guard unless you really, really, really want to get something specific. You don't have to do it. You can use 13. Like, to me, the Kyle Kuzma deal, still right there for you. I still think it's perfect. I mean, it's we've talked about it and speculated a lot here in Sacramento. We have no confirmation at all that the Wizards are really interested in the deal that we've put together, which is like 13 in expiring contracts, or even a combination of 13 in Harrison Barnes or 13 in Kevin Huerter, or whatever the case may be. Kuzma's right there, I think, and is achievable. You can get him. And you can use the 13th pick on draft night to get him. Or maybe I see some people already wanted to turn their attention to Portland and look at Jeremy Grant. Hey, maybe that's another option. I don't like Jeremy Grant's contract very much. I would gladly take Kyle Kuzma over Jeremy Grant, but Jeremy Grant is an option. But these are the guys that you can now completely focus on because Malik is secured. And you can use the 13th pick on draft night to go out and do it. And if you can't find the right trade, then you make a selection with 13. And please, God, I know so many people think that the right philosophy for the draft is take the best talent available. And I understand that approach completely. But this Kings team needs size. If you do not find a way to trade 13 to address that issue, then use 13 in some way to address that issue. Tristan Da Silva. There are players in the draft. Ron Holland, although I don't think he's going to fall. These are guys that are right there for you that you potentially could get with 13 that address a need and can hopefully make a more immediate impact than some of the other younger rookies. Although I know Holland's case, he's a like 18, 19-year-old raw kid from the G League Ignite. So just trade 13. Just please trade 13. I expect that the Kings will try to. It's no guarantee that they will. It seems like we talk every single year about, oh, is this the year the Kings make a big trade on draft night? And it never freaking happens. Please just let it happen this time. Right? Also, full transparency, had a long conversation on yesterday's Locked On Kings podcast about the possibility of trading for Zach LaVine. My interest in Zach LaVine specifically had to do with finding a potential replacement for Malik, filling the void that Malik would leave behind if he were to leave. But I was very consistent with I would not make a Zach LaVine trade until I knew what Malik was going to do. Now I know what Malik is going to do. I know Malik's staying, so I'm out on Zach LaVine. I'm good. I'm good. Especially now that Alex Caruso is off the table, right? Alex Caruso going to the Oklahoma City Thunder. What in the world are the Chicago Bulls doing? Reportedly, they turned down multiple first-round picks last season for Alex Caruso, and they traded him for Josh Giddey. Now, I understand maybe a Josh Giddey young player on a rookie scale contract, multiple players, more appealing than a Harrison Barnes and Kevin Huerter package. I get that. So it's not necessarily comparing the what OKC gave up for him to what the Kings were reportedly involving in conversations. But Josh Giddey was the best that they could get for Alex Caruso. Like I wanted and I was willing to take on Zach LaVine specifically just to get Alex Caruso here in Sacramento. So I'm bummed out because him going to OKC, that just makes that scary team already even better, especially on the defensive end. So great get for them. But now going forward, Zach, I'm good, brother. I'm good. I don't see the point. What is the point? What is the point in going out and getting Zach LaVine? If you don't want Malik Monk to start, that's fine. Keon Ellis is here, right? If you go out and get Zach LaVine, I understand the upside that he has on the offensive end, but paying him all that money to slot in as your starting two, and then you have a log jam of Monk and Keon and Davion and potentially Kevin Huerter coming off your bench, assuming Kevin isn't involved in that Zach LaVine trade, right? Like it does not make sense. You're trying to force a round peg into a square hole in that case. There are better moves to be made, other moves to be made, less financially risky moves to be made. So I know I was talking about it and I was even excited about it to some extent 24 hours ago, but now I have the context of Malik Monk staying. Malik is here. Malik is significantly cheaper. Malik in some ways is better, especially for this Kings team than I think Zach LaVine would be and is. So I'm good. I'm out on LaVine. If I'm the Kings, I'm focusing my attention on Kyle Kuzma. If I can potentially go and get him on draft night, no idea if they can. Pure speculation on our part, but that's the kind of target I'm looking to go out and get next. That's my focus at this point. Get a Kyle Kuzma if you're still looking for a solid starter name, or do what you can to bolster your bench, bolster your rotation, and for the love of God, bring in guys who are 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", lengthy, athletic, wing defenders that can hopefully space the floor. Get me some of those guys. Get Mike Brown some of those guys. That's what they need. That's what this offseason is about from this point on. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers, right? You don't have to worry about sharks or playing against anybody else, the pros out there. All you do, pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and just watch the winnings roll in while you're watching the game. Get in on the action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community. I won a lot of PrizePicks last season, thanks to Malik Monk, right? Taking more on Malik Monk's assists, it was like a freaking cash cow for me almost every single night. And I'm psyched to be able to continue to do that with him next season. You can play that way. Of course, you can play with De'Aaron Fox's points, Domantas Sabonis' triple doubles. You can play with baseball right now when football season comes along. There's so many unique and fun ways to play on PrizePicks. So if you're considering giving it a try, good. What are you waiting for? Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Yeah, you use that code, you put in $100, they give you $100 for free right there. No questions asked. And now you can really start to make some money and have some fun on PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. So now we go back to the $1 million question, or I guess in this case, the $78 million question. Is Malik Monk a starter, or is he a sixth man? Here's the main thing that I'll say with this conversation, because I've made it pretty clear recently how I feel about this, and I'll reiterate it for those of you who haven't listened. And if this is your first time listening to Locked On Kings, welcome. I'm glad you were able to tune in and be a part of such a celebratory, that's the right word, right? Celebratory episode. But no matter what, I hope Malik gets a legitimate shot at it. Now, he could have, part of his agreement with the Kings to stay could have been him saying, I want to start. We don't know. That hasn't been reported. So there's no really need to speculate about that. We know he's capable of starting. Many of us believe, myself included, he's worthy of starting. But no matter what, go into training camp, even if Mike Brown steps onto the floor day one of training camp, still with the idea in his brain that Keon Ellis is your starting two and Malik Monk is your sixth man. And this is going to be the time, damn it, that he actually wins sixth man of the year. Even if Mike feels that way when he steps into the gym the first day, I hope he gives it legitimate consideration. Because to me, Malik starting does not have to sacrifice how important he was for that second unit. Mike already staggers his rotations heavily. De'Aaron Fox is the first guy that he subs out to stagger his rotations. The fact that your superstar is the first guy that you sub out every single game, that's crazy, but there's a reason for it. It's to stagger the minutes and make sure that one of Fox and Sabonis specifically, but now one of Fox, Sabonis, and Monk, or maybe even two of Fox, Sabonis, and Monk are on the floor at the same time. I think Malik should start, right? I think you get a better offensive boost to start the game. I understand Keon Ellis probably gives you more defensive stability and defensive security to start the game, and Malik Monk is then your energizer bunny that comes in offensively off the bench. If it matters as much to Malik Monk as we think it does, and as much as JaVale McGee suggested that it matters not just to Malik, but it matters to all NBA players. And if you missed my conversation with JaVale McGee from last week, go and check that out. If it matters that much, just start the man. He deserves it. He's capable of starting. And I'm not going to be mad. Of course, I'm not going to be mad if Malik is still your sixth man going forward. I'll take Malik Monk still being my sixth man going forward compared to not having Malik Monk on my team altogether. I'll tell you that much right now. But Malik needs to be playing. I should look it up because I don't even think Malik Monk was playing 30 minutes a night last season. And that can't happen to me. Malik is too good of a player to not play 30 plus minutes a night. Yeah, this season he played 26 minutes a night. For context, that's 4 more minutes than he played last season, or the season before, 2022-2023, when he played 22 minutes a night. With the Lakers, when he started 37 of his 76 games played, he played 28 minutes a night. The Kings can find more than 28 minutes a night for Malik Monk, given how important he is to this roster. And I don't think that him playing an extra 2 to 4 minutes a night is going to result in him being more gassed and not being able to play with the same energy and flashiness and athleticism and pizzazz that he plays with, right? Start Malik Monk, or at the very least, play the man 29 to 30 minutes a freaking night. Please. You got him here. You got him here for the next 4 years now. You know what he can bring. You know how important he is to the Kings going forward. And I understand, even though there's a defensive focus, and I've talked about it and hyped that up a lot this offseason and bringing in more guys to address that, and rightfully so, but you still need to score baskets. And Malik Monk, outside of De'Aaron Fox, is the most important player to help you score baskets. Domantas Sabonis might be in contention for that too, because while Domas doesn't necessarily always look to score himself, he's always looking for his teammates, and the Kings run so much of their offensive action through Domantas Sabonis. But he's 100% top 3. And hopefully Keegan Murray can continue to develop into the offensive weapon that the Kings are hoping he can become. Someone who is not just the lethal three-point shooter that he's been, but somebody who can get better at creating his own shot and getting to the rim and relying less on catch and shoot and dribble handoffs and things like that to get his. You get that from Keegan too. Oh man, now we're cooking on the offensive end, and the defense shores itself up. They play the same physical defense that they played to end last season. Oh hell yeah, it is a party in Sacramento. This team can make serious noise. Give Malik Monk a shot. as a starter in preseason. Mike, just give us a glimpse. And if it don't work, then you know what? You're smarter than us. You're right. I trust Mike no matter what. The only area that I'll be frustrated with Mike Brown next season is if he's not finding a way to play Malik more than 28 minutes a night. I mean, it was 26 last season. Bare minimum, get him 2 more minutes a night. Come on. He can handle it, and the Kings need him on the court. So make it happen. Make it happen. If Keon Ellis is still the starting 2 guard come the start of the season, I'm certainly not necessarily I'm not going to be mad at it because I've seen what Keon can do. I see how important Keon is to winning basketball in Sacramento. I'm hoping he can take another step and grow as a more consistent 3-point shooter and show that he can hold down those responsibilities for an 82-game season and into the postseason and not just for the final or not just sporadically throughout the year like last year. I believe in Keon too. So I don't want this to be a Keon versus Malik thing. I'm of the camp that Malik Monk should absolutely start. And you know what? I'm psyched to be able to fight with all of y'all about it and to be able to question Mike Brown about it and argue with people about it now that I know for sure that it's a legitimate conversation and it's not just if Malik stays, maybe, just maybe, he might get a starting opportunity. No, Malik's staying. So now let's talk. Is he starting or is he not? We'll have that conversation, I'm sure, as we get closer to free agency. As we get closer to training camp again. What a great night. What an awesome podcast to do. Wasn't planning on doing it. I'm proud of myself because I haven't woken up my son while doing this show. So that's a win for me. Awesome night. So happy for Sacramento. So happy for Kings fans. Beyond happy for Malik. I know his phone is getting blown up, and I'm sure one of the first people to contact him was De'Aaron Fox. And I wonder if De'Aaron knew about this when he was talking to us yesterday at his basketball camp. I wonder. Regardless, Malik's staying. It's a great freaking night. And all I can say is it October yet? Now I'm ready. Now I can't wait. Bring on the draft. Let's get to it. Let's see what the Kings can do to improve this roster beyond Malik just coming back. Appreciate your support here on Locked On Kings. Thank you for celebrating with me. Thank you for tuning in. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.